Vasudevaya. So today we're going to read from chapter 2, text 1 from Caitanya-Caritāmṛta, Adi Leela, and we're going to begin with Prabhupada's synopsis in the beginning. So it's chapter 2, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This chapter explains that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. Therefore, the Brahman effulgence is the bodily luster of Lord Chaitanya, and the localized supersoul situated in the heart of every living entity is his partial representation. The Purusha avatars are also explained in this connection. Mahavishnu is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, but, as confirmed in the authoritative scriptures, Lord Krishna is the ultimate fountainhead, the source of numerous plenary expansions, including Narayan, who is generally accepted by Mayavadi philosophers to be the absolute truth. The Lord's manifestation of Prabhava and Vaibhava expansions, as well as partial incarnations and incarnations with delegated powers, are also explained. Lord Krishna's ages of boyhood and youth are discussed, and it is explained that his age at the beginning of youth is his eternal form. The spiritual sky contains innumerable spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas, which are manifestations of the Supreme Lord's internal energy. Innumerable material universes are similarly exhibited by his external energy, and the living entities are manifested by his marginal energy. Because Lord Krishna Chaitanya is not different from Lord Krishna, he is the cause of all causes. There is no cause beyond him. He is eternal, and his form is spiritual. Lord Chaitanya is directly the Supreme Lord Krishna, as the evidence of authoritative scriptures proves. This chapter stresses that a devotee who wishes to advance in Krishna consciousness must have knowledge of Krishna's personal form, his three principal energies, his pastimes, and the relationship of the living entities with him. So now we'll do the verse together. Śrī-caitanya-prabhum vande, bālo yad-anugrahāt, taren nānā-mata-grāha, vyāptaṁ siddhānta-sāgaram. Anyone? Śrī Caitanya-prabhum vande, bālo yad-anugrahāt, Śrī Caitanya-prabhum vande, bālo yad-anugrahāt, taren nānā-mata-grāha, vyāptam siddhānta-sāgaram. Śrī Caitanya-prabhum vande, bālo yad-anugrahāt, taren nānā-mata-grāha, vyāptam siddhānta-sāgaram. Ladies. Caitanya-prabhum vande, bālo yad-anugrahāt, taren nānā-mata-grāha, vyāptam siddhānta-sāgaram. Śrī Caitanya-prabhum vande, bālo yad-anugrahāt, taren nānā-mata-grāha, vyāptaṁ siddhānta-sāgaram, Sri Caitanya-prabhum vande. Śrī-caitanya-prabhum. To Lord Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Vande, I offer obeisances. Bālaḥ, an ignorant child. Api, even. Yat, of whom. Anugrahāt, by the mercy. Taret, may cross over. Nānā, various. Mata, of theories. Grāha, the crocodiles. Vyāptam, filled with. Siddhānta, of conclusions. Sāgaram, the ocean. Translation. I offer my obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusive truth, which is full of the crocodiles of various theories. Purport, Srila Prabhupada. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, even an inexperienced boy with no educational culture can be saved from the ocean of nescience, which is full of various types of philosophical doctrines that are like dangerous aquatic animals. The philosophy of the Buddha, the argumentative presentations of the jñānīs, the yoga systems of the Patañjali and Gautama, and the systems of philosophers like Kaṇāda, Kapila, Dattātreya are dangerous creatures in the oceans of nescience. By the grace of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, one can have real understanding of the essence of knowledge by avoiding these sectarian views and accepting the lotus feet of Krishna as the ultimate goal of life. Let us all worship Lord Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu for his gracious mercy to the conditioned souls. We can repeat the translation. I offer my obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusive truth, which is full of the crocodiles of various theories. Omagyanātimirandasya gyanandana salakaya chaksulanmilitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Caitanya manobistam stapitam jena bhutale swayavarbhakadamayam dadati sva patandikam panchakalpa tirubhischa kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, everyone here, we all know today is first day of Kartik, officially. And I'm a person, I don't ever ask to give class, but I actually asked to give this class. And hopefully by your mercy it will be okay. The reason I asked to give the class was because, as we've seen, as this Kartik is approaching, it's the 50th anniversary of the very first Kartik festival. It was 50 years ago, October 15th, 1972, that Srila Prabhupada arrived in Vrindavan. I had become his servant 6 weeks, about 6 weeks before that, 6 weeks before that, in New Vrindavan. They're in Bahulaban. And of course I found out 12 hours before I left with Prabhupada I was going to be his servant. I had been living in the temple for 16 months. And I was, I guess, 20 years old. So, of course, everything happened very quickly from that moment because Prabhupada was always doing something, always going somewhere. There were so many things to learn, so many things to hear. And I remember very distinctly one of my very first rides on the plane with Srila Prabhupada. And this was still in September. This was a month before Kartik was to begin, 50 years ago. And Prabhupada was sitting in the plane by the window. Always sat at the window. Always had the window seat. And I was sitting right next to him. I was told that was my service. Shama Sundar, he had been a devotee for 5 years. He was advanced senior devotee, 5 years, and he was 10 years older than I was. He said, your service, when Prabhupada rings the bell, you answer it. When Prabhupada is in the car, you sit next to him. When Prabhupada's in the airplane, you sit next to him. So I was doing my service, sitting next to Prabhupada. And the plane takes off, and Prabhupada looked at me. He said, so we're going to Vrindavan for Kartik. We went to 5 different cities before Vrindavan, but he was meditating. We're going to Vrindavan for Kartik. I didn't even know what Kartik meant. None of us. We didn't offer deeps. We didn't know so many things. I didn't. So I said, yes. And he said, when we arrive, he said, of course, we'll be at Radha Damodar Temple. And he said, every evening, he said, I'm going to speak from Nectar of Devotion. He said, you read. He said, you'll read from Nectar of Devotion. Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He said, you'll read, he said, and sometimes I'll stop you and I'll give comments. So I was very excited. Yes, Prabhupada. I said, okay. And then the plane went on. He stopped in Pittsburgh, Dallas, Los Angeles, Hawaii, and then he arrived at probably Hong Kong or Bangkok. And there, Burjan was there. He had been preaching with him and his wife had been preaching there at this time. And he came to see Srila Prabhupada. At the time I was giving Prabhupada massage. Half of the massage are right behind him. He's sitting on the floor, usually cross-legged, sometimes with his feet out. And you're sitting right behind him, cross-legged. You both have gumshoes on, and I'm massaging his head, and then I'm massaging his back. And Prabhupada's talking with Burjan. And he said, my godbrothers criticize me. This is what I see. He was really had this meditation, going to Vrindavan. It was a big thing, as you'll see as we go along. He said, but my godbrothers criticize me because I've allowed women in the temple. He said in Gaudiya Math here in India, no women in the temple, no such thing. He said, but I studied. He said, I studied you Americans, people, for a year. He said, and I could understand if I was to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement, women had to be involved. In the West, men and women are always together doing everything. He said there was no question of separation. He said, so we allowed women. He said, but they criticize me. He said, but in their temples, in the mats, in Mayapur, he said, who do you see? Festivals, nothing but widows, all women. So he's saying they're criticizing, but they're doing nothing. Everything is based on the women. Well, so many widows, he said, coming. He said, but because I've made that adjustment, he said, we've been successful. Now think, I was with Prabhupada now for a week, 2 weeks. And I'm massaging. And I said, Prabhupada, how do you know the difference between changing a principle and making an adjustment? Because he said, I made that adjustment. And then it got very quiet. And he just said, that requires a little intelligence. But Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness, Lord Chaitanya's movement. And when I was reading these first lines about these inexperienced children, that was all of us. We didn't know anything. Nothing. And the longer it goes, the more you realize you know less and less as you get older. So he said that at that time. With him he brought 3 sannyasis. Again, he was coming to Vrindavan. He knew for the entire month of Kartik. This was the first time Srila Prabhupada would be in Vrindavan for Kartik, since he left 7 years before. It was our first big Kartik festival, 50 years ago. There was 40 devotees, just this group here. That's who attended this big festival. Mostly all Westerners. There were a few local Indians there, but it was all his Westerners, Americans, Europeans, the British. They were all attending. So I was also getting training. These 3 sannyasis he had with him at the time, he wanted them to understand how to preach. He thought they needed some training. It was Siddha Ananda Goswami, Tushta Krishna Maharaj, and Sudama Vipra Maharaj. And they were all very unique individuals. Sudama Vipra, he was most unique. He was 1970, he already had his covered in tattoos. Now everybody, so many tattoos. At that time, no one had tattoos. He had tattoos. So we were in Bangkok. Prabhupada stayed there for a week in a hotel room. Prabhupada did not like hotel rooms at all. He would stay in life members' room, one little room, anything other than a hotel room. But in Bangkok, there was nothing else. So he stayed in the hotel room. And I'm learning how to be his servant, what to do. I was cooking lunch in his cooker, breakfast, fruits, milk, nighttime, hot milk every night, hot milk, steaming hot milk every night. And we're in a hotel, and Prabhupada called me in. He said, I want hot milk. So I had no idea what to do. We're in this hotel. We have nothing at all. So I grabbed his cup. I run down like 5 stories into the basement kitchen of this, Thailand hotel. And I try to go into the kitchen, dressed dhoti, kurta, shaved head, tilak, and they're just like, I'm thinking Prabhupada wants hot milk. That's it. You have to do it. So I tried in my feeble way to get into the kitchen to heat up the milk, but they just wouldn't let me in. So after 5 minutes, I go back upstairs with empty cup. And Prabhupada looks at me. He said, where's the milk? I said, Prabhupada, they wouldn't let me heat it up. He just shook his head. Sudama Vipra. He said, I'll get your milk, Prabhupada. That was it. He went downstairs, went down to the basement. I'm sitting there next to Prabhupada in his sitting room. 5 minutes later, he comes up, steaming hot cup of milk. Prabhupada looked with a smile. Sudama Vipra says, sometimes you have to yell. And Prabhupada looked at him. Then he looked at me. He said, Śrūtakirti is not serious. You don't want to hear those words from your spiritual master. No. And I wasn't serious. Anyway, that was also training along the way. So then finally Prabhupada arrived in Delhi, I believe on the 14th. He was in Vrindavan for the first day, just like all of you are here today, first day of Kartik. Prabhupada was excited to be in Vrindavan at that time for Kartik. I can't assume to know all the things he was thinking, but some of the things I could understand. This was a very important festival for Srila Prabhupada. This was Vrindavan, Radha Damodar temple where he had lived for years, translating his Srimad Bhagavatam. He told me during that festival in his room, he said, I put everything that you need to become Krishna conscious in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He said everything is there, because he didn't know what would happen after that. He said, so whatever is required is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And he said this place, his rooms, Radha Damodar temple, Hayagriva says it in his book, his rooms were the hub of the wheel of the spiritual world. The hub of the wheel, you have a wheel, in the center of the wheel is the hub. So Prabhupada said, this place, his rooms in Radhadar temple, he said, was the very center of the spiritual world. He said, because Srila Rupa Goswami started the Krishna consciousness movement in this place. So this is a place I was fortunate enough to arrive with Srila Prabhupada. And it was all about hearing, coming to Vrindavan. Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning. Prabhupada gave Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning. Nectar of Devotion class in the evening. And the rest of the day, those 40, 50 devotees, they were just trying to survive. Some stayed in Keshigat Palace. We still call it Palace. It was very run down, more so than it is now. Some improvements have been made. And little place up the road there, Fogala Ashram. Some of the devotees stayed there. I got to stay right on the veranda between Prabhupada's sitting room and the kitchen. That was where I stayed for the month of Kartik. And despite everything else going on, at that time, the whole Juhu project was in complete disarray. So much anxiety was there. Devotees were writing, Prabhupada, you have to come to Juhu. And he said, I'm going to be in Vrindavan for Kartik. I was just talking with Guru Kripa Prabhu, because he was there as well. A few of us were there who were here. The very beginning, we just had Rasa Purnima. You all saw those if you were at Mangal Arti. You're lucky you saw those nice big clay pots filled with sweet rice. A lot of sweet rice. Prabhupada had an initiation ceremony right on Rasa Purnima, right at the beginning. Now, this going on in Vrindavan with his Western disciples, this was not, we say, kosher. The local people, the majority of them, they didn't look up to us. They looked down at us. Guru Kripa was saying they were throwing stones at us. Right in Lori Bazaar, you could go there. No one had any money there. Ganga Prasad, Gangotri, they're all just little shops. They were lucky to sell 1, 2 dhotis, 2, 3 saris in a day. But then we came. We never had the ability to buy a dhoti. We just wore bed sheets. They were our dhotis. Now we're in Vrindavan, we could buy these things. They wouldn't even take money from our hands. You had to put it down, like the pujaris do. When you bring beads, something to pujari, and they put down on the table. And don't touch. That's how the shopkeepers were. They took our money. Our rupees were very good. That was okay. But no touching. Malechas. We were malechas. Prabhupada couldn't have done anything more flaunting, more bombastic than to initiate sannyasis in Vrindavan at Radha Damodar temple, right in their faces. That was Prabhupada. He was not shy about what he had accomplished by the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. He was very proud, not personally proud, he was proud how the holy name had now been spread all around the world by his endeavors. And he wanted to show all these people, the Goswamis, the caste Goswamis, the shopkeepers, anyone who was coming here, my disciples, they're first-class pure devotees. That's how he looked at us. That's how he spoke about us. Not necessarily to us. He would say other things to us sometimes. He'd call us, call malecha, rascal, nonsense, all these things. But to others, he would say they're pure devotees. They're pure Vaishnavas in the line of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu. This was his mission. And Prabhupada had accomplished it. He already had temples, 1972, all over the world. Disciples, he wanted them to see these disciples from America, from Europe, South America, from everywhere. Vaishnavas. He had made Vaishnavas. Prabhupada did this. So that's what he did. The very first evening, fire jagya, right in front of Rupa Goswami's Samadhi, Bhajan Kutir. Two of the sannyasis, Guru Kripa, Yasodanandan, they had been in South India. And people, none of the devotees wanted to go to South India either because that was very strong Smarta Brahmana territory. But they went there, they preached, they learned so much Sanskrit, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they could quote slokas. When they came, Prabhupada was very happy. He said, Guru Kripa Maharaj. Guru Kripa Prabhupada, he said, I'm a brahmachari. He said, no, you're not. You're a Maharaj now. That was it. He was going to make his Maharajas, his Swamis. All through the day. Morning class was there, evening class was there. The rest of the day, the devotees struggled. How to eat something decent, how to wash your clothes, how to keep healthy. We did get to go in a very clean Jamuna river every morning. Every day you could go in the Jamuna. It was beautiful. Prabhupada said, watch out for the turtles, snapping turtles. There were turtles in the Jamuna. It was so clean. That was one of the high points to go to the Jamuna. Otherwise, devotees were struggling. But then there were two others he gave sannyas to. They were young, even younger, barely 20, I think maybe 19. And they were completely unknown. One of them was walking around in the courtyard, Radha Damodar temple. And Prabhupada said, who is he? In the room, Prabhupada called me in the room. He said, who's this? Who's this boy? I said, I don't know. He said, call him. So then he went into the room. Prabhupada said, where are you coming from? Because they were very independent, it seemed. They weren't connected to a temple. And he said, what are your plans? So they said, Paramahamsa. He said, we're going to go to Vietnam to preach. Then Prabhupada immediately said, you have to take sannyas. So now he upped it from 2 to 4. He said, you have to take sannyas. And he was a little taken back. Prabhupada said, you go pray by the Samadhi, Rupa Goswami. You pray, you chant there. And you pray to him. And every day he would say, you go to Krishnadas Kaviraja's Samadhi, you pray there. So then Prabhupada said, yes, he'd give him sannyas. And he said, go see Shyamasundar, the secretary, right? So he went to Shyamasundar, said, Prabhupada's giving sannyas to me and Parvajaka Acharya. Shyamasundar looked at him and said, Prabhupada didn't say anything to me. So you're not on the list for sannyas. And he said, no, ask Prabhupada. He said, we're getting sannyas. So, of course, he asked. And Prabhupada did what he wanted. Could be just like that. But he wanted this as well. He wanted them to see. He wanted the people here in Vrindavan to see who these people are, who his disciples were. Gave him sannyas. So it was Rasa Purnima evening. It was a wonderful ceremony. Afterwards, we went back to Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada said, Rupa Goswami attended. He said, Narada Muni attended. These were life-changing things going on this planet by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Rupa Goswami was smiling. Narada Muni smiling upon us, what Prabhupada had done. Pradyumna was the one that read from Nectar of Devotion. I didn't have that service. Pradyumna was the Sanskrit Panditji. Prabhupada called him Panditji, Pradyumna. He would go on the morning walks. This place, the Tamal tree, the parent of this tree was there then. That's all, nothing. Everywhere fields. We'd go walking, mostly right there by the temple. You see the photographs, some photographs, Prabhupada walking by Madan Mohan temple. Hayagriva's there, so many devotees are there. Guru Das was there. Jamuna, of course, Jamuna was cooking for Prabhupada. And it was funny on the morning walks. Sometimes Guru Das, he would act like he was the tour guide. You come here now, if you come for the first time, so many tour guides, they'll show you all over Vrindavan, here, there. So we'd be on the morning walk and Guru Das would be saying, this place is this temple and this person lives here. And Prabhupada just said, yes. Prabhupada knew all these things. But again, he had let his disciple engage. Then, of course, when you come to Vrindavan, so many things we know. You come here, everyone's Radhe, 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 Radhe. Of course, Prabhupada would always respond, Hare Krishna. They never heard him say, Radhe, Radhe. Always, Hare Krishna. We're the Hare Krishna people. Prabhupada made us the Hare Krishna people. He didn't make us the Prabhupada Nugas. He made us the Hare Krishna people. So anyone, Prabhupada would say, Hare Krishna. One of the walks, again in Vrindavan, because everyone's walking barefoot in Vrindavan. Prabhupada didn't walk barefoot in his room. He would wear slippers when he walked around from one room to the next, right? We have slippers, Prabhupada slippers. Every place he was, he had slippers. He walked in slippers. Then he took his slippers off at the door and put his shoes on, his canvas sneakers, we called them back then. So the devotee said, Prabhupada, in Vrindavan so many walk barefoot. Should we walk barefoot? And Prabhupada just looked, he said, you should follow in my footsteps. His footsteps were shoes. Understand? He had shoes on. Anyway, so these were little things. One morning walk, there was you don't see them anymore, vultures. So many vultures were there at that time. You could see along Chittakara Road sometimes dead animals, a dozen vultures pecking away. They're all gone due to chemicals, they say, in what they were eating. Bodies were so bad that vultures died off. But once there was a vulture right on the crest of one house. And Prabhupada just nonchalantly said, someone's going to die there. Then we'd keep walking. You just never knew what would happen when you were with him, what he would say. And went down to the Jamuna, of course, go to the Jamuna, put 3 drops on his head. He said, this is as good as bathing. He said to put the 3 drops on. One day during Kartik, we took the car to Govardhan. I remember just one day he went to Govardhan. And again, what I remember is not very much, but I remember going to Govardhan with Srila Prabhupada and offering his dandavats at Govardhan, then coming back. Otherwise, he stayed in his rooms, he gave classes, he gave darshan to his disciples every evening. And I had my own experiences. When you go to Radha Damodar, you know the door into Prabhupada's sitting room is the walls this thick. Right? The walls very, very thick here. It was that thick. And it was only 4 foot off the ground. You know, you had to. So Prabhupada was always ringing his bell. So one time I went to go into the room to offer obeisances, but I lifted my head up way too early, and it slammed into the concrete wall. And then boom. That was the first time I saw the Brahma Jyoti. And I offered my obeisances, and I looked up, and Prabhupada went, "Ooh," he said, "that's to make you humble." Then the evening class came. It was beautiful. It's very different now. Then it was all open. The Samadhi, Bhajan Kutir, and they even had to clean up the area. It was just all dusty. They made a little raised area for Prabhupada to sit, give his class. And he would start right around 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. And I was recording the classes, these classes you hear during Kartik. And I learned very quickly. I had this Ur tape recorder. It was a heavy, weighed like 10 kgs, solid metal, reel-to-reel tape recorder. And when we left America, I was given like a half a dozen reels of TDK tape to record. And in most places, Los Angeles, Dallas, they would record. You know, in America, they had facility to record Prabhupada's classes. But when we came to Vrindavan, there was no question of getting anything. So the first day, I remember recording everything at a very high rate on the tape. You know, on the records at 33, 45, 7. So I was like at 120 or something at this tape. And that was the first class. And then for the next, I turned it all the way down to the slowest possible level so that the classes could be recorded. I realized you can't get tape here in India. We couldn't get it. So then I had the tape recorder there and just microphone up to Prabhupada there, a rubber band around it. I carried a rubber bands to put around the microphone. And of course, Prabhupada was giving class every day, and as it's getting dark out, so the parrots are coming back into the trees. You could hear the sounds of the parrots. You could hear peacocks still back in those times. And of course, the monkeys, they've always been here. The monkeys have been here. When Krishna was here, monkeys were here making problems. So the monkeys were there. And so when I was there, Prabhupada's servant, I was very happy to be Prabhupada's servant. And Prabhupada's speaking. And that tape recorder's going on. Prabhupada, and that sound system, not as sophisticated as the sound system here, but very loud rental system, and very, very loud and very high-pitched sounds. And Prabhupada's speaking, and I'm fanning him with the chamara fan, very happily, you know. And I'm fanning, and Prabhupada's speaking, and even I see flies. So there were a lot of flies then as well. And I see flies around him, but I'm like doing an artik ceremony to Prabhupada, you know, fanning. And there's a fly right on his forehead. And Prabhupada's speaking right through the sound system. And all of a sudden I'm fanning, and he said, "Get someone up here with some intelligence." And that was it. And then this one brahmachari came, British boy, Kunja Bahari was his name, very tall, funny guy. He grabbed it right out of my hand, I was frozen solid at that point. I was just standing there. And he grabbed it out of my hand, and I slid back, and I started playing with the knobs on the tape recorder, so I looked busy, like I still am important. I have an important service. And I was watching Kunja Bahari, and he had the chamara, and he's going, and all the flies disappeared. Everything just out of the way. And Prabhupada speaking, nectar of devotion. He didn't miss a beat. He's speaking and he went. Then I went, couldn't even touch the tape recorder at that time. So that was my initiation coming to Vrindavan. All of you that come, you see, you might be here for some days, a week or two, and then you think you're going to die. You get so sick. But that was my Prabhupada humbled me again. Hitting that wasn't enough. I needed to become much more humble. And then it went on from there. And then I'd walk back with Prabhupada to his room, but this time I was like 5 steps behind him. I couldn't even walk next to him. I was so upset. And then the brahmachari came up to me and said, "Oh, you're so fortunate that Prabhupada chastised you like that." I said, "Yeah." But Prabhupada wanted to show these people in Vrindavan. To this day, you still have a variety of people here that see us Westerners, in a different way. Prabhupada saw us. They were the devotees that spread Krishna consciousness for him all around the world. He couldn't have been more happy with all of them. So then there was a period, Prabhupada went upstairs. He was living in his rooms for some time. I would see Jamuna in the kitchen, had like the jolly door, black, painted black. Jolly was black. But I could see her sitting on the floor in this little pie-shaped room with a bucket filled with coal, wood. That's where she cooked. Sometimes she had this little contraption, just like a metal box with a hole on the bottom that she would put on top of the bucket. That was an oven. That was her oven. She baked, Prabhupada, baked apples, and she cored it. And inside the core, she put raisins and maybe some sugar, and then she poked a bunch of cloves into it. It was really an amazing little treat. And she put them in that oven on top of the coal stove. She was expert. I had no idea what I was doing. I was afraid to walk out the front door of Radha Damodar Temple because everything was a mystery. I didn't even know where the Jamuna River was until Prabhupada walked to it one morning. Then I figured out where the Jamuna was. But I just stayed there. And so it's already 10:09. There's a lot of Leela to say. Towards the end of the month, the last 10 days going to Prabhupada's disappearance day, we'll be having Prabhupada Katha in Balaram Hall every evening, I think for an hour and a half, from 5 to 6:30. So I can tell some more Vrindavan stories at that time, especially about the monkeys stole Prabhupada's shoes. Everyone should hear that at least once, even several times, and see how Prabhupada dealt with monkeys. Much like we did, he dealt with them. He just said they were rascals, big rascals. So I thought, if we have any questions at this point, again, it's 50th anniversary of Prabhupada starting this festival here. And now, just like Prabhupada stayed at Radha Damodar Temple, he very much wanted us to come to Vrindavan to hear. Going to different places, very nice. So many places, seeing Krishna's pastime, seeing different things. But the main occupation that Prabhupada had for his disciples was hearing. Like he said, here there should be so many Goswamis. And we have so many Goswamis here now to hear from. This is the reason to come to a holy place. This is what makes a holy place, to hear from saintly people. So whatever else you do, you should be here at these classes, me included. Yes. Yes.
So during Kartik, generally there's recommendations for performing tapasya and extra austerities and doing different spiritual rituals. So how important is it that we focus on all these things, or should we adopt some of them and just enhance our devotional service in what ways?
Thank you. Good question. Because I wanted to mention, we didn't do any deeps. This didn't exist in ISKCON while Prabhupada was here. All these things came after, and they're very wonderful. But as far as austerities, I find it's much more austere to come and sit in a class and hear than it is to do these kind of rituals, which are quick and easy, and then you're done. Now, the real business is hearing and chanting. Shravanam Kirtanam. This is Prabhupada's movement. He says all about preaching. So if you want to preach, you have to hear, then you can preach. So you're asking me personally, to me, most important is attend the morning program. Mangalarti, Guru Puja. You're never too advanced for these things. Prabhupada set the example, not just by giving class, he was attending the class. You could hear him when people were chanting the verses. He would follow along. He would chant the verse along with everyone else. He would sit here and hear class. When he wasn't giving class, he would sit and hear class. So he set the example in that way of what's the most important thing for us to do. So to me, these are number one important. Everything else, you do it, it's very nice, But I think we have to be careful, especially in our ISKCON society, to follow Prabhupada's program. Like we all know, when his secretary, when Prabhupada was staying here, his secretary was gone. Where are you? He said, I was visiting, going this temple. Prabhupada said, all the holy places are right here in this courtyard. So why did he say that? He wanted to keep us, he wanted to present Krishna consciousness his way, not any other way. And especially in a place like Vrindavan, he said, no, you shouldn't be going here, hearing from this person, hear from him, hear from his ISKCON society. It's always what he wanted. And, it's very nice to see now so many God brothers, they're coming here, Krishna Balaram Mandir, and they're satisfied. Because Prabhupada's disciples, they understand what's important, how to please Prabhupada. Our only way of success is to please Prabhupada. So, you read his books, you hear from the devotees, senior devotees, how to please Prabhupada. That's your method to get success in Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj.
As our movement grows more and more, of course, there are many devotees increasing as well, and some getting old also. And because we have this technology where you can hear but not being present here.
Yes.
And at the same time, because temple is not getting bigger, and we are increasing more and more, and therefore some of our devotees will have their own groups that they will do their own hearing and chanting. So how can we adjust to that? Because we're hankering for their association as well, but seems to be that the focus is more not being here. What to do, what to do.
Set an example is the only thing I can think of. We've tried other ways, asking, begging, pleading, but there's always facility. Even what was it, a few years ago, Radhanath Swami, he had his 6,000 people right there at the Goshala. It was very much part of ISKCON. So he could manage that with 6,000 devotees. So, we have the Braj Parikrama, we have so many things going on, and it's good. But each place, again, it's about hearing from Prabhupada's books. Whether we do it here or there. For me, here, like I tell everyone, I've been here 3 years now in Vrindavan. I haven't been to any other temple but Krishna Balaram Mandir. And there's nothing wrong going anywhere else, but for me, I'm very content to be here. Not only that, I was trained by Prabhupada, just stay in your room, just be by him. If he was around, if you weren't there, it means something's wrong. If you weren't there to hear from him, then he knew something is wrong. You're in Maya, basically.
Confirmed.
So yes, that's the situation. I think we can do another. Yeah. What is yours?
Please tell the story when Prabhupada said to his disciples, those people have to do austerities to be born among us.
Which people?
Goswamis.
He said they would take birth in ISKCON. Yes. Did you? No. Yeah. When devotee asked Prabhupada about these, in the other temples here, the Goswamis and things, and Prabhupada said they would in the future take birth in ISKCON. So we're in the right place. We're in the most perfect place, in the most perfect time of the year. Nowhere better. So take full advantage, chant very sincerely, hear very nicely. And then Prabhupada wanted us to go back out into the world and with that potency preach to others. Yes?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. You were speaking about the importance of attending the morning program and hearing, that the hearing is the most important. And sometimes we are finding ourselves in a situation where we have to choose between the hearing and performing the service, which may happen at the same time. So how do you choose the correct way?
Well, just like the pujaris, there's always a group of people that have to do services while class is going on, or even while Mangal Artik is going on. In Mayapur, back in the day, devotees did all the cleaning. We didn't have hired help. The devotees did the cleaning. And on a morning, Prabhupada was going out for his morning walk, and then he's looking at the temple area, and it was just dirty. And he said, why isn't it clean? And someone said, well, Prabhupada, the devotees are chanting their rounds. And he just shook his head Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is common sense. There's things you can do. Many temples, they have speakers in the kitchen from class and speakers in the altar, the pujari room, like that. Speakers in the deity cleaning room. There's ways we can do both. But the service is also very important, so that has to go on. But those devotees, like it said, serving the deity, serving the guru, the most dangerous services, being that close, that personal. I know, being with Prabhupada for a long time, you have to understand. And I was fortunate because I was always fallen. I was always not very intelligent, not very philosophical. So I always saw Prabhupada was like no one else. That I saw all the time, despite any difficulties I had. I never saw that, well, he was just a regular guy, because he wasn't. You know, what he did 24 hours a day. He was just Krishna conscious 24 hours a day, every day. So I was very happy to be able to be in that situation for the most part. But we have to take care. And sometimes, Prabhupada also told Tejas, who here in Delhi, he was in Delhi before there was anything, struggled all the time. And Prabhupada said, you shouldn't, your service you shouldn't be in too much anxiety doing service. He said, that's not Krishna consciousness. If it destroys your Krishna consciousness, then that's not healthy. So we have to know how to deal with that. We have to stop. There's a big program in Govardhan. It's already begun. Many of us are supposed to go there. So, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, 50th anniversary of Kartik Festival, ISKCON Society Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. So you are requesting Srila Prabhupada's disciples and all the Maharajas and the elderly Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis to go to the Balaram